Imagine a city that thrives on joy, prosperity, and harmony. A utopia where every citizen is fulfilled. Yet, in a dark corner of this paradise, a single child suffers in unimaginable isolation. This is Ursula K. Le Guin's The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelis. The child's suffering ensures the happiness of the entire society. So now ask yourself, is that justice? Good morning. Today, I invite you to explore the intersections of justice, race, and collective responsibility. Drawing on the works of Durkheim, Rousseau, Dubois, Mills, and Le Guin, we'll examine how justice is not universal, but shaped through societal values, and what that means for our systems today. And that brings us to the first question. What is justice? Justice at its core is an elusive concept. We often think of this as fairness or equality. However, justice is not a universal truth. Instead, it is a product of social structures, collective ideals, and individual convictions. As Durkheim writes in The Elementary Forms of the Religious Life, society operates through collective effervescence, an intense energy that emerges when individuals unite around shared moral values. Society, in this sense, becomes God. Justice is what society collectively deems moral, even when the morality is deeply flawed. Le Guin's Omelis illustrates this concept perfectly. The citizens' joy depends on one child's misery, yet they justify this suffering for the greater good. Justice in their society is not about universal fairness. It is about preserving the harmony of the majority. And similar to this, Rousseau's The Social Contract explains how societies form systems to ensure cooperation and survival. Humans in the wild act only for themselves. But once they enter a social contract, they agree to collective norms. Even if those norms are unjust, a society can still appear just without actually being just. Justice then becomes a shared illusion, one that is constructed to maintain social order. But what happens when that order disproportionately benefits one group while oppressing another? And so this brings us to our second prompt. How does justice relate to race or racism? If we examine justice through the lens of race, the cracks in our systems become glaring. Charles W. Mills, in The Racial Contract, argues that the social contract, which claims to guarantee equality, has always been a racial contract. It is built to uphold white supremacy and disenfranchise Black and Brown communities. Take the police system, for example. Policing, as we know it, has deep roots in racial violence and oppression. From slave patrols in the South to modern-day systemic brutality, the police were never designed to protect all people equally. Justice in this context is not blind. It is weaponized to uphold racial hierarchies. Reforms have been proposed, but studies show that they're often ineffective. Reforms like body cameras or implicit bias training do not address the root cause of the problem. And in some cases, they even increase funding to flawed systems rather than holding them accountable. W.E.B. Du Bois' The Comet offers a haunting perspective. So when a comet devastates New York, it leaves a Black man and a white woman who ultimately become the only survivors. And so, stripped of their social norms, they briefly exist as equals. But once society's structures return, so does racial injustice. Du Bois challenges us to imagine a world where justice transcends race, a world that we have yet to build. And so this brings us to our last prompt. What would a truly just society look like? The answer to this lies in systemic change. Rather than reforming flawed institutions like the police, what we must do is imagine new systems rooted in equity and community care. The first idea is abolition of the police. Abolition does not mean chaos. It means reimagining safety through community-led solutions. Imagine reallocating police budgets toward mental health services, education, and housing, addressing the root cause of crime rather than punishing its symptoms. And the second idea is restorative justice. Justice should focus on healing, not retribution. Restorative justice emphasizes accountability, reconciliation, and repairing harm within communities. And the third idea is systemic solutions. As Mills and Du Bois suggest, we must dismantle the racial contract and build systems that center equity, not power. Justice, then, is not about preserving the status quo. It is about collective action to dismantle structures that oppress and exclude. And so this brings us to our conclusion or a call to action. Returning to Liggins O'Malley's, we face a choice. Do we accept a society where justice is selective, where the child suffers so that others may thrive? Or do we, like the ones who walk away, choose to build something better? Justice is not a static ideal. Instead, it is a responsibility. It requires us to question the systems that we have inherited, confront our complicity, and demand a world where justice truly means fairness for all, not just for some. And lastly, I leave you with this. What are you willing to sacrifice to create a just society? And will you walk away from O'Malley's, or would you stay? Thank you for coming to my talk.